What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Jay Rene with Prison Riot Radio. I hope that you're doing well. This afternoon, we got a brother on the phone by the name of Richard Taylor. Okay, he has a lot that he is doing, and we're just going to chop it up with him and, find out more about him. How you doing, bro? Good afternoon.
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on your platform, Jay. I really appreciate this.
Oh, definitely, for sure. I'm looking forward to this. You got a lot going on, and I think that it's going to interest a lot of people. You know what I mean? So let's jump right into it. Give the people a little bio on yourself and like where you from.
All right, a little short bio. I'm from. My name is Richard Taylor. I am from Goldsboro, North Carolina, in Wayne County. A little small town of about 50,000 people. That's where I grew up. That's where I was raised. And that's where my family, originates from. And I stayed there until I was about the age of 22 when I moved to Virginia Beach, Virginia, Norfolk area. I stayed up there, encountered a lot of different things. I've done a lot of different things, and then I just recently moved back to North Carolina in March of last year. But currently, I am an author, 4 books. I'm a speaker. I have a radio show, and I just kind of do a lot for my community in regards to keeping young men, especially young black men, from going down some of the paths I went and experiencing some of the things that I went through.
Right, definitely. We appreciate you for doing that. And we're going to get more into, the accomplishments and things that you've done. I want to start off, however, talking about, I know that you've been incarcerated before, but it's not really a cut and dry situation. It was you were wrongfully incarcerated. So can you tell the people a little bit more about that?
Yes, in 2013, actually I remember the date, on June 1st, 2013, I was arrested in Norfolk, Virginia, and placed in jail under the charges of rape, kidnapping, abduction with the intent to defile, assault, and a couple of other misdemeanors. Mm-hmm. And that was the result of, a false accusation by someone that I was involved with.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know, going to, being incarcerated is a tough thing, in general. But, how did you deal with that being wrongfully, convicted?
Yeah, well, I wasn't actually convicted. I was held in jail until the trial, in which I was found not guilty of all charges. But that time was still a very, very heart-wrenching time. I was given no bond. Right. I was placed on the 7th floor of Norfolk City Jail, and that's the most dangerous part of the jail. Mm-hmm. I was housed with, people who have already been convicted of murder, right. People who were facing murder trials, people who were already given 42 and 50 years. Mm-hmm. So, it was a very tense, atmosphere. People were either facing the rest of their life in the prison, as I was, right. or have already been convicted to the rest of their life in prison. Right. And so you can imagine, the tension that was in there on a day-to-day basis. And as you mentioned, being incarcerated is difficult, but I had been incarcerated before, but though that was for things that I had done. Right. So when you're incarcerated for something that you haven't done, and your court-appointed lawyer, you haven't seen him but twice, and the day of the preliminary hearing, he offers you a plea deal for 27 years, and he hadn't even asked you anything of what happened. Wow. Did you do it? Right. He just, those were the only. I saw him twice before that preliminary hearing. Mm-hmm. The first day he came and asked me a few questions, and then he said he had to go. And I was like, well, aren't you going to ask me what happened? He was like, no, I have to go. And he hung up the phone. Wow. And then, and the next time I saw him was the day before the preliminary hearing, in which they, gathered the evidence, right. to see if my case would go to trial. And he just offered the plea deal, and I was like, "Hey, you don't even remember me. You didn't even ask me what happened. Matter of fact, you hung up on me the last time."
Right.
And his words were, "Okay, well, I gotta go now too. See you tomorrow in court."
Wow, that's crazy. That's really crazy. And there's a lot of people that have similar stories. There's people that have been convicted and have been behind the wall for many years for crimes that they didn't commit.
Yes, and that's why I consider myself so fortunate, because it could have went either way, but my dedication and determination to prove my innocence. Mind you, when this happened, I was 35 years old. So I had been incarcerated. I knew the due process. I knew my rights and everything. So that morning at the preliminary hearing, I knew that, when they called the witness up to the stand, the lawyer had no questions to ask the accuser that would prove my innocence, to be able to catch her in a lie. So I asked the court that, I said, okay, I don't doubt Mr. Halleck. That's what his name, Mr. Halleck, the lawyer. I don't doubt his abilities, but, I feel that, since he hasn't, really been being interested in the case, I'm going to defend myself and address my accuser myself. And so I did that.
Right.
I asked questions that I knew she had to lie to according to her story.
Right. That
would be proven later on through phone records, DNA records, and the statements that she made to detectives.
Right.
And in her testimony. So that's why, that's I kind of took my destiny in my own hands. I actually went to the law library and realized that, I had the right to the speedy trial, which was 150 days in Virginia when you're being held without bond. And that same lawyer, about 2 months before the trial was slated to begin, I was called to the courtroom, and he wanted me to get a continuance. And I said, no, I'm not getting a continuance. I'm going to court November the 4th.
Right.
Because I'm ready to handle this. But the only way that you are negated your speedy trial is if you, the defendant, or the defense, or your lawyer, agree to a continuance. And so that's what he was trying to do as well, to keep, and in that way, that's what they do. They keep you in jail for about 2 or 3 years, and then they offer you a plea.
And you just be ready to go home. Right. People be ready to go home. Right.
Yeah. So you're ready to go home. So they offer you a plea and say, okay, well, I can do another 2. I've already been in here 3. And I reject that. And even the judge said, he said, well, no, I'm not going to give a continuance because we are reaching that 150-day mark. And we have to, go ahead and try this. And it was at that point I was like, okay, I am going to file this lawyer. And I told the court, I said, I would like to, remove him from the case and get another lawyer. And when the judge agreed, the next lawyer on the case was what they call a paid attorney. He normally, he's not court appointed, but his name was on the list that day for the pro bono.
Okay.
And so this lawyer right here, he came in. He actually came to the jail that very day. And most lawyers talk to you through the screen. No, he came up to the 7th floor and met with me face to face. And literally we talked for an hour. And he was like a godsend. And that lawyer, when I fired him, he actually looked at the DA. He actually looked up at the DA and threw up his hands like he wouldn't let me do it.
Wow.
Yeah, he actually looked at and I was calling that lawyer. I was asking for the motion of discovery. I was asking for the phone records, which will prove she would lie. Well, she was lying. I was asking for the motion of discovery, the DNA records, and he got nothing. He kept telling me he couldn't get this.
They was trying to railroad you.
Yes, but within a week's time, that lawyer, Mr. John B. Thomas Reed, he got everything that I had been asking that lawyer in a week's time. For the last 3 months, I was asking that lawyer. That man got everything that I needed to prove my innocence within a week's time.
Wow, I'm glad that you made that decision. That was a great decision. I'm glad that it worked out for you, bro, because they was trying to railroad you for sure.
Yes, and actually, just another quick tidbit. The day of the trial. Now, the trial was that morning. My lawyer came to the holding cell in which I was awaiting, and he was like, "Well, they've offered you a plea, and I think it's a pretty good plea," which it was. But he said they're going to drop the rape, they're going to drop the kidnapping, they're going to drop the abduction, they're going to drop the abduction with the foul, and all you have to do is plead guilty to simple assault, and you'll walk out of jail today. Now, under normal circumstances, because I was facing so many charges, I would have took that plea. But the only reason I didn't take that plea because I was already on probation for an earlier charge. So if I would have got that conviction, I wouldn't have went home anyway.
Right, I got you.
It would have been automatically invalidated. So I was like, no, I can't do that. Plus, I didn't do any of it. But I asked the lawyer a question, and this tell you how evil the system is. I asked the lawyer, I said, well, why is she going to drop all of these charges and let me go free? And these are my lawyer's exact words. He says, because she knows it's bullshit. Right. Which means she is the DA. But that just let me know the DA, their job is not to provide justice. Right. Their job is to get convictions. Even though she knew I was innocent, she would rather get me to plead to something and let me go than to just let me go.
That's outrageous.
Because she knew I was innocent.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I'm glad you made it out on the upside of things with that, bro.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I went through a week-long trial, though. I went through the week-long trial. Of course, the lawyer called her in several lies throughout the time. The phone records, indicated that she was the one who was calling me uncontrollably. And the DNA records showed that, her saliva was on my neck, my ears, my chest, and all over parts of my body, which, you're not engaging, you're not kissing and licking on somebody if they're raping, So, but that was very, very, like, it was something I never, like, knowing that, of course it's 12 people and, they deliberated for like a day and a half. And I'm like, okay, it's clear that she was lying, but what's taking so long? So I'm in that cell just going through it. But a lot, my faith helped me, my faith, my prayers, my scriptures, they held me through all of that time, through those whole 5 months that I was incarcerated. And, I was found not guilty on all charges that Friday. And I think because of all of the stress of the trial, 3 months later, I was hospitalized with two brain aneurysms. Had to have a 5-hour brain surgery.
Wow, you've been through a lot. You got a heck of a story, bro.
Yeah, that's just one of the incidents, and that's the basis of my second book that I wrote, which is Wrongfully Accused, Rightfully Acquitted. And that just tells the story, the backstory, and the after effects of that situation right there. But it was a lot of guys in there who were younger than me, of course, and they just took the advice of the lawyers and pleas. And when they saw me going to court every day and coming back, they would always ask me, how's it go? And I just get my notes up. But then when I came back and it was like, how's it go? I was like, not guilty. I mean, you should have seen how many of those brothers started bringing me their paperwork. Right. Bringing me their paperwork and say, look at this, man, look at this. I was, this. And I started looking, I was like, wow, you had a way out of this. But, a lot of them had took pleas. A lot of them had done what they call, in Norfolk, Virginia, they call it a bench trial, where the judge is the jury. Right. So basically, when you're put, you don't have a chance right there because the judge also gets, he gets promoted on how many years he give out. So, that I was like, why would you, and a lot of guys in Virginia were taking those bench trials. I said, why would you put your fate in the hands of one man who works for the court rather than 12 jurors who only one of them have to find you not to do those bench trials? by their court-appointed lawyers.
Yeah, it was a whole system working. Some of us are familiar, but it's definitely a system on how they do things to keep things like that. And I'm sure they use the lack of knowledge in a lot of those cases to get what they wanted. It's very unfortunate. It's something that happens all across America.
Yeah. I have a friend in New York whose father is serving, the same about 30-something years because he was a teenager and they would just a murder happen, and back then they just grabbed the first black person they saw.
Right.
And say, okay, well, yeah, you do this, and they convince him to test, they railroad him through a quick trial and get witnesses, and to come out the blue and say he did it. So he's actually advocating for his father as well. So there's just so much that goes on, once they have you in custody.
Right.
That a lot of people wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
People believe just like, okay, just because you're arrested, you did it, or just because you are convicted, you did it, which would not be further than truth.
Right. You said a mouthful there, bro. You definitely said a mouthful. I always tell people, everybody in prison or jail isn't a criminal. It's a lot of brothers and sisters that's back there that's been wrongfully convicted. That's one of the things I advocate for, and that's one of the reasons, because they don't really have a voice. Speaking of voices, though, for your publishing company, I think that's your saying. It's like bringing the voice of the voiceless into the minds of the masses.
Yes, because go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, tell us more about, like, what made you, that's like one of the first things you see when you go on your webpage.
Yes, because that's what's needed, man. It's so many people whose stories are not heard, and, I want to give them that voice. Currently, right now, there's a young man who's, he's awaiting trial for double murder, and, he claims his innocence. Mm-hmm. And I met his mother through promoting my book. She sent him my book, and within a month's time, he had written the book. He was so inspired, so he sent me that book, and him and his mother contracted with me to to put the book in print. And I'm working on that right now. Okay. And his story is it's just so much. And once again, with him being in there, he doesn't have an advocate.
Right.
He doesn't have a way to let somebody hear his side of that story, or let somebody hear his voice. And that's my goal with, I was actually literally, before you called, literally working on this, because I told him and his mother I will get this done by the end of the month. And, I want to keep my word. But, I mean, that's my, I have about, 3 other manuscripts sent to me from prison as well. Just to once again, like those stories, even once again, even if someone did commit the crime, there's still something leading up to that needs to be addressed. Why did they feel like they had to rob, or why did they feel like they had to steal? What steps led them to? What systems failed them? Along the way. So it's just so much to it. But that's my goal. In doing that as well, I do a radio show called The U-Turn Show, with every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. in Greenville, North Carolina, which I highlight people who have been through certain situations as well, and give them an opportunity to tell how they survived or overcame those obstacles that were set for them. So there are so many people who just look at the downtrodden, the ones who are on the lower realms of society, and think that they don't have a voice, they don't have a story, they don't have value, they don't have worth, they don't have knowledge and experience to give people. And, that could be some of that, that can be anything further from the truth. So that's my goal to, get these stories out, those stories that, are I don't know those roses that grow out of concrete.
Right.
Those roses that, those stories that come up from the dirt, and they try to muffle it, they try to stuffle it, they try to stifle it. But no, I'm that's my entire goal, with my publishing services.
Okay. Well, we definitely appreciate you for that, giving those that are voiceless or voices aren't loud, a way to amplify it or a place to put it. That's what we do too. So we definitely appreciate others that are doing the same. So, speaking of books, you have your own books that you've written, not just one, but more than one.
Yes. So yeah, my first book is called Brushes with Death. And, that stems from, my admitted criminal lifestyle of, selling drugs, using drugs, gambling, all of the things that come with the quote unquote, street or, the street life or the gangster lifestyle. It just details, the many different dangerous experiences that I had, during that time, culminating or ending with me being shot 3 times close range while holding my 3-month-old daughter.
Wow.
And that incident that happened in Virginia Beach, Virginia, at the ocean front. And I was once again blessed and fortunate enough to walk out of the hospital in about 2 days. But of course, at the scene there were drugs, so I was eventually charged with those drugs and given a lengthy 8-year probation sentence, and that was the same probation sentence that I was facing if I would have taken that plea that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, so that book stemmed out of that. That incident kind of woke me up, and it caused me to kind of look at my life and like, wait a minute. How did I come from Little Goldsboro, North Carolina, a little church nerdy, little school kid that liked basketball and reading and writing poetry? How did I get to this point? Of almost bringing my life and my daughter's life to the end. So I moved back to North Carolina, and that's when, I started writing. I heard something clear as day say, write your life. And that book is the culmination of the book, and I use it as a therapeutic process to, kind of deal with the decisions I've made, kind of look back over my life and see where I went wrong. And so that was very therapeutic. And of course, publishing the book gave me a sense of accomplishment and a sense of redirection, in my life. And, Cause was the first step in my turnaround. Of course, it was only 6 months after I published that book where that situation of me wrongfully accused thing happening. So I had to go through that ordeal, which kind of tarnished my reputation with my books and everything. I was doing really well, promoting them, speaking at the college. I was speaking, at gang conferences. I was speaking, and my book is not a promotion of that lifestyle neither. It just tells people the consequence that you're going to have to suffer.
Right.
If you're living that lifestyle, whether it's being shot, whether it's being arrested, whether it's being addicted to drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, all of those things are mentioned as deterrents, not as something that's cool to do.
Right.
So of course, then when that happened, after I was released from the wrongfully accused, I told my lawyer, I was like, well, I'm going to sue the young lady who accused me. He was like, well, I mean, you can sue her, but she doesn't have any money. And so he was like, well, just write a book about it. So, of course, that's what I did. But in hindsight, I could have sued the state if I would have been thinking. But I was just, once again, so grateful for my freedom. I should have sued the state for wrongful prosecution. And my next book is called Son of a Preacher Man, which I published that last year in July. And on my father's birthday, and that book details, my father's childhood, on how he had a rough childhood growing up in an abusive home with a drunken stepfather who, abused him and his mother, getting on drugs at a young age. But then he became a pastor at an early age as a young man and turned his life around. And so, he was able to provide for me that father that he never had. So the book focuses on that turnaround in his life, but it also focuses on the things that I learned from him, not only me, but just a child learned from their father coming up. And it also, just highlights the overall importance of fatherhood especially in our community where, a lot of us are lacking guidance and, structure and stuff like that. So that was my third book, and I think my fourth book kind of applies to what, that you're advocating for, is that, police justice. That book is called Blue Lights in My Rearview, which was published in February of this year. And that just details, the different things that we're seeing in, as far as like police brutality, and it details the history of it all the way back from slavery until, the killings that we see today, how the black man, or the black people in general, but more specifically the black man, has always been the target of the police and the judicial system in this country. And they use the police and criminalizing us as a major tactic of, excusing their behavior. So I think we talked a lot about this in, your hometown of Delaware, where, there's just it's a lot of, police brutality and abuse that goes unwarranted, unpunished.
Right.
And so that book, just highlights that. Also, my experiences with different situations with police, but also what we can do as a people, to solve the problem, avoid those type of situations, and protect each other. Yeah. And what we need to do as well.
Right. They definitely sound like some definite reads, you know what I mean? I'm sure that people gonna find them of interest, and it seemed like you got a few different things, so you'll be able to reach out to different types of people. So that's really awesome. I'm gonna have to check out some of your books, bro.
Yeah, thank you. Once again, I speak to, I've spoken at a few youth facilities, youth detention centers in Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. And, I just basically try to wake our young man up, because I know I was kind of blind to whether it was peer pressure, whether it was drugs, whether it was music, whether it was influence. All of those things play a part in an impressionable young mind to think, okay, grabbing a gun is cool, robbing is cool, selling drugs is cool, which is, it's easy to, see the cool side of it, but they don't show you the dark side of it.
Right, exactly.
I try to give them the dark side.
Right. I appreciate you for that, bro. I know that you have a podcast that you're doing. So tell us about that. What's that, the name and stuff?
Yeah, so the name of that podcast is called The U-Turn Show. And we broadcast it live on the radio in Greenville, North Carolina, every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Okay. But we also stream it live via Facebook and GPAT TV in Greenville. And also it's uploaded on the U-Turn at the Taylor House Publishing U-Turn channel. YouTube channel. So all of my guests, pretty much all of them have been in the system. Like, I think it was one of my guests, my second guest, had, been sentenced to death row. And got it overturned, and then he got the life sentence overturned. He spent 25 years, for murder, and he got clemency by the governor when some new law came into play. So I interviewed him, and he told his story. I interviewed also one of my friends who was from North Carolina, who got convicted of murder when we was 18. He did about 14 years. He's out doing well. One young lady, she was arrested for, murdering her stepfather. And they kept her for a year and then just released her with no explanation, ruined her life. And now she's written a book and getting things on track. So all of my guests are just phenomenal individuals that endured some hard times, and are out now, running youth facilities, writing books, running, record labels, and running businesses, food catering business. So once again, it's that same thing, bringing those voices, and those stories to the masses that need to be heard, and giving hope and encouragement to those who may be going through some of those situations.
Right.
That, okay, it's not over from here.
Right.
When you do get out, or when this situation gets behind you, you still can come out and be prosperous. So
right.
that's that's the basis of the show. Though last night it was a different show. It was a young man and his family whose house got shot, and him and his wife I think he was hit. He was shot 10 times. His wife shot 4 times, and an infant baby who was in the bed with them was shot 1 time, and all of them survived. However, and this was early this year in Lumberton, North Carolina. And he was telling his story of recovery and how the situation came to happen. And I think that was actually one of my best shows last night. But yeah, it's called the U-Turn Show, and all of the episodes are uploaded onto YouTube. So you definitely the listeners can check that out as well.
Yeah, most definitely. So tell the people, bro, where they can find your website, where they can find your books and everything. Like, how can they get in contact with you, link with you?
Yes. I do have a website. My website is www.taylorhousepublishing. That's Taylor, like my last name, house, like you living, and publishing, like you're publishing a book, .com. That's TaylorHousePublishing.com. That's my website. You can go up there. You can order my books from the site directly. Free shipping if you order more than 2. And you can find out more about my speaking. You can see my speaking. Watch a few videos up there as well. Or you can call me direct. If you want to get in touch with me directly, my phone number is 919-587-7782, and I'm available, regardless of what the situation is, whether if you just need some advice, if you need somebody to come help with your advocacy, whatever it is that you think that my skill set would help, whatever you're trying to do, and if it's for a good cause, I am certainly available, because once again, my goal is to try to just bring about change. So you can reach me there. My email address is taylorpublishinghouse@gmail.com. And you can just reach me at all 3 of those platforms, more preferably, the phone number, which once again is 919-587-7782. But also my books can be ordered through my website or, on Amazon, Kindle, or any online bookstore, Barnes & Nobles, any one of those as well. Okay.
All right, so we're going to make sure that the people get your info, bro. Like I said, I appreciate everything that you've done and that you're doing. I anticipate this not being our last call for sure. You know what I mean? I feel like we can expound on a lot of different things that, a lot of things to talk about.
Yes, definitely, man. I look forward to, just being available for all of the advocacy that you're doing as well. I definitely don't want to end the call without, giving you a heads up for, all that you do for advocating for people behind the walls and outside the walls.
Yeah.
So I definitely, definitely honor your work, and I want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, because this is fabulous. And once again, I hear you interview a lot of inmates, so you're doing the same thing. You're bringing the voice of the voiceless into the minds of the masses. So that's big.
I appreciate that, bro. Thank you for the acknowledgement.
Thank you for having me. And I look forward to talking with you and speaking with you, and helping you out in any way that I can as well.
All right, that's all love.